If your company's doing 5, 10, even $15 million a year and you're netting 10% or less net profit, you need to stop blaming your sales team, stop blaming your marketing, and stop blaming the market. That would be stupid. You don't have a lead problem, you have a math problem, and quite possibly a courage problem. Because the truth is, most contractors know exactly what would fix their profit. Things like raising prices, cutting the crap out, stop saying yes to work that looks busy but pays like garbage. They just don't want to deal with the discomfort of doing it. And that discomfort is exactly where the money is. My name is Rich Harshaw. I'm the founder and CEO of Level 10 Contractor. For the last 3 decades, all I've done is help home improvement and home services contractors, roofing, siding, windows, kitchens, bath, HVAC, all of those kinds of guys build real brands, generate predictable leads, and most importantly, actually keep the money that they make. So if you're a contractor who's tired of working hard and wondering where your profit went, then you're in the right place. Let's be blunt. A 10% net profit, if you're doing $5 million a year, that's $500,000. And that's fine until you realize that with a handful of discipline changes, that same company, your company, could be making $800,000, $1 million a year or more without working harder, without selling harder, without magically getting more leads. Most contractors try to hustle their way out of a math problem. They want more jobs, more ads, more chaos. That's not leverage, that's just exhaustion. Real profit comes from engineering your numbers. Price, margin, mix of work, expense discipline, and systems that produce business at the lowest possible acquisition cost. Today, I'm going to show you 5 ways to get your net profit to 15% or better. Okay? These aren't tricks, they're decisions. And if you're not willing to make them, there's no amount of marketing that is going to save you. That's why I'm talking about this on my marketing channel. If you're tired of working your tail off for mediocre profit, then listen carefully. This is how grown-up companies make real money. Okay, so the first thing is you need to raise your prices. It's the number one thing that you need to do if you want to get your profit to 15% or more. If you've ever listened to me at all, then you already know this. It's the very first thing. Raise your prices. And if your immediate reaction is panic, well, good. That tells me that we're near the lever. But then what are we going to do with all this extra money? Some of it is going to go to profits, yes. But I'm also going to encourage you to spend some of the extra money after you raise your prices on what I call awesomeness. Just doing things more awesome. And then also spending some more money on marketing so that you've got more at bats, so that you can sell more. And then the rest is going to go, like I said, into increased profits. That's a moneymaker. So let me give you one clean side-by-side comparison to show you how this works. Let's say that your average sale is $10,000. Obviously, it's going to vary from company to company, but for the sake of this example, let's use round numbers. And let's say that your hard costs, the labor and materials, is about $4,000. So that gives you a $6,000 gross margin. That's probably on the low end of what I'd recommend, but again, just adjust this for your situation, okay? So now let's say you're spending about 10% on marketing, so that's $1,000, and about $4,000 on overhead. Those are big loose numbers, I know, but go with me here. That puts you at a cost of about $9,000, okay? That's a $10,000 job with $9,000 of cost, which is $1,000 of profit. That's 10% net. If you do 40 jobs a month, that's $40,000 a month in net profit. About $480, that's almost $500,000 a year, okay? That's what a 10% business looks like. Now, here's where the leverage starts to show up. Instead of $10,000, let's say you sell that same job for $11,200. Yeah, $1,200 increase. And I know the question here is, how do you pull that off? That has everything to do with identity. I've talked about it on other videos. It's price conditioning, brand ambassador, all the things that I like to talk about here on this video series. It's probably going to be a problem for your salespeople at first, and that's normal. Now, instead of spending $4,000 to fulfill that job, let's say you spend $4,200. It goes up a little bit. It gives you a little bit more budget to do the job better. The awesomeness stuff I talked about. Where and how you spend that extra $200 is up to you. I don't want to talk about that right now. But now you've got room to improve the experience. So let's say that you also bump your marketing spend from $1,000 to $1,100. Gives you some more chances to get some more at-bats, to get some more sales. And let's say that your overhead goes up from $4,000 to $4,200 because of those 2 things that I just talked about, okay? Better systems, better tools, better execution, better marketing, okay? Level 10 kind of stuff. Doing things the right way. So now you've got about $9,500 total cost on an $11,200 sale, which leaves you about $1,700 in net profit on that job. Guess what that percentage is? It's 15%. Now let's zoom out for just a second. That's an extra $700 in real net profit per job. If you do that 100 times a month, that's $70,000 a month more every single month. Over a year, that's $840,000. Same company, same people, same amount of work, Very different outcome. You didn't work harder. You didn't sell more jobs. You didn't get lucky. You just engineered the numbers, okay? So I'd rather sit down and engineer profit on a piece of paper or on a spreadsheet and then go out and figure out how to sell at 11,200 instead of 10,000. I'd rather do that than spend my life wondering why my net profit is stuck at 10%. I said it 1,000 times. Your most important marketing tool is your calculator. You've got to understand your numbers. Now, if you're still doing the same number of jobs, but you're selling at a higher price, you're making dramatically more money every single month and every single year. Again, same work, same stress, maybe less stress, different outcome. Look, I learned this from my dad when I was a teenager. He had his own business. He was in the real estate business. And he used to tell me, the reason you're in business is to make money. You're in business to make money for yourself. Now, that might sound a little selfish, and I get that. Obviously, people need to work for you, and they need to make money, and your customers need to feel great, and your employees, all of that matters. But you're putting in the time. You're putting in the effort and the risk. Do you just hate yourself? Because that's the only explanation for settling for 480 when 800,000 is sitting right there. And no, this doesn't happen overnight. You don't flip a switch and suddenly your prices jump from 10,000 to 11,200 in my example. You have to work towards it. 10,000 to 10,300, then maybe 10,600, 11,000 over a year. It might take 2 years. It doesn't matter. Just start moving in that direction and make it happen. Step number 1 to getting your net profits to 15%, it's to raise your prices. All right, let's move on. The next thing, number 2, is to push for more high-end work. If you're selling vinyl windows, maybe you can start selling fiberglass windows. They cost more money, they have better margin. If you're doing vinyl siding, maybe you can get into James Hardie siding. If you're selling $40,000 kitchen remodels, why don't you start to edge up into $50,000, $60,000, maybe $80,000 kitchen remodels? And to be specific, here's what I don't mean. I don't mean that you're now charging $80,000 for that same stupid $40,000 kitchen. No, that's dumb. I'm talking about going after higher end business where there's more margin available, where you're dealing with people that want to pay for quality, that are willing to pay for quality, and where you can get that margin up a little bit higher so it's a little bit better. Now, push yourself in that direction. Is this something you can do? Is it something you can pull off? Are there things that you can do to start moving there? I was talking to a deck company and they said their average deck is $35,000, but they just sold 2 decks. One was $200,000, one was $250,000. A $250,000 deck, that's a moneymaker. I'm not saying abandon the $35,000 deck business. I'm saying, what if you intentionally started pushing more and more into the higher end work? There's customers out there that can and will afford it. They want it. They have the money. Go after it. Okay, so let's go to number 3. This one's kind of obvious, but just because it's obvious doesn't mean it's easy. We're talking about getting your net profits to 15% or more. And here's a lever that most contractors underuse, which is cutting out crap expenses. And I mean, look at them and cut them out ruthlessly. Look at your business and find things that you're spending money on that you don't actually need. I was working a few years ago with one of my big clients. They were getting ready to sell to private equity. And so they started going through this process of really scrutinizing their expenses, not to fire people, just to make sure that they understood where their money was really going, to really look at it. And there was one line item that I remember they told me about that nobody had questioned. It was so much a natural part of their business that nobody even thought about it. Here's what it was. They were spending about $10,000 a month to have dumpsters hauled away. What was in the dumpsters? It was just like random debris, stuff that came back from jobs. People would throw it in there, the technicians would throw it in there, and then once a week, somebody would come and empty it. $10,000 a month. And nobody ever asked why. When they actually looked at it, they realized 2 things. First, it didn't even need to be emptied nearly that often. Second, they could have had their own guy hook it up to a truck, take it to the dump, and the cost to do that would be about $500 a month. It was the same company, the same work, the same crap in the dumpster, but just a very different expense. Now, here's where this matters. If you take that $10,000 monthly expense, you take the $500 that it ended up costing them, it's $9,500 a month in pure profit. Over the course of a year, what is that? It's $114,000. And if you're ever selling your company, that kind of improvement doesn't just add profit, it adds value. Think about this. If you sell your company for 8 to 12 times earnings, and let's just call it 10 times earnings, that's a round number. I don't know if you can get that or not. But that's $1 million in valuation just created by getting rid of a freaking dumpster. It's not dramatic, it's just math. And by the way, This was not a small company in that story that I just told you. They were about $50 million. So stuff like this hides in big companies because nobody's paying attention. No, it's not really anybody's job to scrutinize, but it also hides in smaller companies too, maybe even more so. Subscriptions on credit cards for things that nobody uses anymore. Software that made sense 2 years ago, but nobody's using it now. Phone systems that are maybe overpriced and underutilized. We cut our phone bill at our company by something like 70% just by looking at it. And the solution, guess what? It was actually better than what we were doing before. If you want a simple example, here it is. If you're doing $5 million a year at a 10% net, that's $500,000 profit. I already talked about that. Now, get rid of just $5,000 a month in crap expenses. That's $60,000 a year. Your profit just went from $500,000 to $560,000. You tracking with me here? That's an 11.2% net instead of 10 just by getting rid of some stupid freaking software that you're not using anymore or some kind of a dumpster thing or whatever it is in your particular case. Do you see how easy that was? We do this rigorously every quarter in my business, quarterly. Every 6 months would be the minimum that I would let this go by if I was you. In my company, it's quarterly. Go line by line and ask a simple question. Do we still need that? Do we even know what this is sometimes the right question. You start asking around, everybody's like, I don't even know what that is. Get rid of it. Flush it down the toilet. That's profit in your pocket, okay? If you're a $10 or $15 million company, you cut out $10,000, $15,000 a month in waste, that's going to go straight to your bottom line. If you're smaller, maybe it's only $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month. I don't care. It's still profit, okay? We're trying to get the number to 15% regardless of what the top line is. It's not sexy. This is not exciting, but it works. And when you start stacking this discipline on top of higher pricing, getting higher end work, and engineering, repeat, and referral, the math starts bending quickly in your favor. Okay, so let's talk about engineering more repeat and referral business. This is number 4. And I'm using the word engineer on purpose because this does not happen by accident. This is not about hoping people remember you. This is not about, doing good work and letting the chips fall where they may. This is about designing a system that predictably produces business at the lowest acquisition cost that you're ever going to have. Now, I'm going to challenge you right out of the gate. Here's the question. What percentage of your business right now comes from repeat and referral? I've polled contractors on this over and over again, both on webinars and live seminars. The answer that I hear most often, guess what? Less than 5%. Okay, I was going to say that's not normal. It actually is normal, but it's not inevitable. That's a load of crap if you think that 5% or less is the best you can do. It's a strategic error, and it's one that it's actually really easy to fix. Now, if you do this correctly, repeat and referral should represent a bare minimum of 10 to 20% of your total business. That's going to be true for most contractors. Roofing might be an exception because the purchase, you buy the roof, you don't really need another roof. So it's a little harder to get repeat business. But even still, it should be meaningful. And here's the key point. This will be your lowest acquisition cost by far. No other lead source is even going to come close. Now, this system, getting more repeat and referral business, it has 3 general parts: a foundation, an engine, and an amplifier. The foundation is the experience itself. The job that you do for the customer, it has to be done right. The communication has to be clear, on point. The process has to feel professional. Your identity has to be obvious. Expectations have to be set and met or exceeded. How about that? This is the table stakes. If the experience isn't awesome, then none of this other stuff is going to work. But here's the mistake that most contractors make. They stop here. They assume a good experience automatically turns into repeat and referral, and it doesn't. Now, you'll get some repeat and referral. It's not going to be automatic, and it's not going to be as much and nearly as many as it should be. It only creates potential. Now, the engine is going to be your brand ambassador program. And this is where most companies completely drop the ball. They don't have a brand ambassador program. This is not a gimmick. It's not optional. It's not nice to have. The brand ambassador is a mechanism that converts a good experience that hopefully your customers are having, and it sears it into their memory, into their emotion, and it becomes proof, and it makes them take action later. Okay, so after the job is completed, your brand ambassador is going to go into the home anywhere from 2, 3, 4 days, something like that, no more than a week after the job. They're going to reassure the customer. They're going to make sure that they feel great about their decision, what happened. They're going to take a little survey. And again, most contractors just aren't doing this. Your brand ambassador is also going to gather reviews and capture photos and video of the customers. It's going to help you create social proof, okay? Super, super critical. If all you could ever do with your brand ambassador is get the social proof, it would totally be worth it. But here's what else they're going to do. They're going to give a gift to that customer that is going to sear it in, the good feelings, the memory. Okay. They're also going to ask for more business. They're going to ask for referrals directly. There's scripts for this. Okay. You don't have to make it up on the fly. And then after they do all of that in the home with your customer, they're going to go knock their neighbors' doors and turn one job into many. If you do this properly, the brand ambassador is going to become a major lead source all by itself, but it does more than that. It feeds every other part of your marketing. Like I said, social proof, reviews, photos, videos, all of that is going to positively affect everything else that you do. Your ads are going to work better. Your website is going to convert better. Your salespeople are going to close easier. This is why a brand ambassador program isn't a marketing add-on. It's a profit engine cooking with gasoline. If you'd like me to do an entire video on brand ambassador, drop the word brand ambassador in the comments. If enough people do that, I'll create the video. Now let's talk about the amplifier. And the amplifier is very simple. It's constant contact. I'm talking about mail, email, and text. Staying in front of people long after the job is over. This is where the contractor is going to make money. Now, a lot of people though make this somehow, they feel like it's expensive or complicated, but the math would suggest the opposite. If you do 1,000 jobs a year, just round number, maybe you do more or less, it doesn't really matter. But if you do 1,000 jobs a year, how much is it going to cost you to send a mailer to every customer? Well, if it's $1 per mailer, it's about $1,000. $1,000. If you do that once per quarter, then you're going to spend $4,000 a year mailing your customers. If you do it every month, probably better. You're talking $12,000. Look, this is pennies on the dollar for what you're going to make. It's nothing. What are you going to get for that? Familiarity, trust, top of mind awareness. And you say, well, what do you mean top of mind awareness? They just bought a $17,000 thing from me. Of course they're going to remember me. No, they're not. They're not. Trust me. People are going to forget who you are after about 2 to 3 months, 6 months at tops. They're not going to remember your company name. It's going to you think, oh, well, they bought this big thing. It was huge, so they're going to remember. But here's what you got to understand. To that person, here's what happened. They needed a roof. They needed siding. They needed whatever the heck it is you sell. You came out, you sold it, you did a fine job. Everything was great. You went on with your life and they moved on with their life. They don't really care that much. So 6 months later, when their friend asks them about their new roof or their siding and they say, who can you recommend? They're not going to know. You've got to amplify your awareness. It's going to give you more referrals, more repeat business. It's not marketing spend. It's profit protection. It's profit creation. When you combine constant contact with a great experience and a real brand ambassador program, the effects are going to compound over time. So let me say this very plainly so that you can't miss it. If repeat and referral is less than 5% of your business right now, that's not because of your market. It's not because your customers are somehow different. It's because you haven't put a system in place. And when you build this system, the foundation, the engine, the amplifier, you will create a meaningful percentage of your total sales at the lowest acquisition cost in your entire company, out of your entire marketing budget. That's how you engineer profit instead of chasing it. Let's move on to the fifth thing, which is farming, okay? Farming, because this is one of the most misunderstood and most resisted strategies in contractor marketing. Farming is not direct response, okay? Everybody wants direct response. It's not something where, I spent money today, did the phone ring tomorrow kind of a thing. Farming is about consistency and frequency of messaging over time. Consistency, frequency, C and F, okay? It does not require and it does not get an immediate return. And that's exactly why most contractors are uncomfortable with it. They don't want to do it. They want ROI right now. They want proof this week and that short-term thinking. It's the very thing that keeps you trapped in expensive reactive marketing forever. Here's the distinction that I need you to lock in. Direct response is designed to generate action immediately. Okay? And that's good. That's where you start. I'm not saying it's bad or wrong or you shouldn't do it, but I'm also talking about branding or farming. It's designed to build familiarity, trust, and recognition so that when action is needed by the prospect, when they finally need something that you sell, The decision is already made. Farming is about being known before you're needed. Direct response is about being found at the moment of pain. Both matter, but they serve very different purposes. Most contractors underinvest in farming because they can't tie it cleanly to a lead or to a call, and that's very short term. It's a mistake. Farming works precisely because it changes how people respond to everything else you do. So when somebody has consistently seen you on TV, on radio, maybe it's OTT, streaming television, maybe they see in the search results now, organic social, and when that pops up and when they see you, you're no longer a stranger, you're a familiarity. They say, oh, I know those guys, that's who I'm going to call. Even if they're searching on Google because they forgot that they knew you, it's going to breed familiarity, and that is going to dramatically lower resistance. And that's where the economics shift, okay? When farming is working, your direct response is going to work better. Your ads are going to convert better. Your close ratios are going to go up. Your sales cycles are going to shorten, okay? Your cost per acquisition is going to come down, not because you found a cheaper lead source, but because trust is already there. It's in place before the lead ever raises their hand. Let's be clear about what farming looks like in contractor marketing. I'm talking about TV, radio, OTT, SEO should be considered farming, content marketing through organic social, paid social on Facebook and whatnot. That's also going to be considered farming when it's used for branding. Now, it could go either way. You can do direct response and you can do farming with Facebook, and you can do it with these other channels, but these other channels are not really designed to scream call right now. They're designed to say, this is who we are. This is what we do. This is what we stand for. This is how we're different. This is why we're better. This is what you can expect when you do business with us. And to say that over and over and over and over again, consistently, relentlessly, that repetition matters. Frequency matters. The market needs to see you again and again and again before it believes that you're real and credible and safe to call. Contractors who quit farming too early usually say, well, it just didn't work. And what they really mean is it didn't reward their impatience, okay? Farming does not reward impatience. It rewards commitment. And that's why the big get bigger, because they're willing to invest into that. The smart way to do this is not to abandon your direct response, pay-per-click, or some of your maybe meta ads that are more direct response oriented, your door knocking or your home shows. Keep doing those things. I'm talking about layering farming on top of that stuff. Start with a reasonable percentage of your marketing budget into farming and then commit to consistency. You're going to have to measure it differently, not by how many calls you get tomorrow or the next day, but by improved performance everywhere else over time. And as that happens, you're going to find that the growth gets cheaper, not more expensive. When you combine farming with pricing discipline, with higher end work, with engineered repeat and referral business, and you start controlling your expenses, you're going to stop living month to month. You're going to stop chasing leads. You're going to start building a brand that pulls business towards you. That's what farming is really for. Now, let's be clear. When you start farming, it might cost more and your profits could actually go down temporarily. It's an investment, okay? If you take money out of your paycheck and you put it aside for investments, guess what? You now have less money available for spending, but you now have this nest egg over here that's growing, that's compounding, and it's working for you. That's what I'm asking you to do. Now, I'm going to give you a bonus. I said it was going to be 5 ways, but I'm going to give you a 6th way, and this is going to be financing. I want to talk about this for a minute before we finish this video, okay? And I want to be clear about what financing actually is for, because most contractors think about it the wrong way. Financing is not about affordability, okay? It's not about helping broke people buy things that they can't afford. Thinking of it that way, that's kind of a load of crap. Financing is a price support system. It exists to make higher prices easier to sell. It also allows you to increase your average sale and to improve your closing ratios without having to discount. Here's the mistake that I see all the time. Contractors say, yeah, but financing costs me money. Like they use Green Sky or one of those kinds of plans, and you have to give up a percentage of the sale. And that's true. And that's also short-term thinking. First of all, raise your prices to cover it, period. That's non-negotiable. Financing should never come out of your margin. Second, and this is the part that most people miss, your average sale is going to go up for sure. It's 100% guaranteed. It's never happened where your average sale went down when you started aggressively offering financing. When you lean into it, financing, you present it correctly, people are going to buy more. They're going to choose better options. They're going to upgrade. They're going to say yes to things that otherwise they would have said no to. That's That's just how it works. It's a money maker. So here's why this matters for profit. Let's say that you're selling a $10,000 job today without financing, and now you introduce financing properly, and your average sale goes up to $12,000. Even if financing costs you a few points, you're still going to be ahead. You're making more gross profit dollars per job, and your close rate is going to improve, and it's going to be easier to sell at higher prices across the board, okay? It's a triple win. It also ties directly back into your pricing. It's so much easier to raise prices when financing is part of the conversation. Customers anchor on the monthly payment, not the total price. That doesn't mean you hide the price. I'm not trying to be dishonest or misrepresenting. It just means that you frame it in a way that reduces the resistance. Higher prices become normal instead of scary. And I want to emphasize this. Financing is not optional if you're serious about getting to 15% net or 20% net. That would be awesome. It affects too many variables at once. Price goes up, average sale goes up, closing ratios go up, and because you're selling more per job, your overhead and marketing become more efficient on a per dollar basis. I'm not going to turn this into a full financing webinar or whatever. This is not the point here. The point is this. If you're not leaning heavily into financing, you're making it harder than it needs to be. You're playing the game on hard mode for no freaking reason. Do you hate yourself? Come on. It's a self-inflicted wound. If it's used correctly, financing doesn't reduce profit, it increases it. Okay, so there you have it. 5 ways, actually 6 ways to get your net profits to 15% or more. Raise your prices, push for higher end work, cut out the crap expenses. Remember the dumpster? Engineer, repeat and referral business. Invest in farming. And then number 6, the bonus, remember, financing. If you apply even a few of these consistently, the math starts working in your favor instead of against you. You don't need luck. You don't need to work harder. You just need the courage to pull the right levers. Now we're talking. You can do this. Make it happen. Let me know what you've implemented and what you're seeing. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me at rich@level10contractor.com.